Okay, we're ready to go. And I'd like to say to the community that what we're doing, you've already seen the root of it, is to bring the candidates for office to behind the scenes and give you a chance to really get a feeling for all of the candidates, some of which you will know, some of which you will not know, and you'll get to know. Now, we're going to start off today with Mark Sullivan, who was a former selectman, and I'd have to say one of the very best. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you, Charlie. Nice to be here again.
It's good to have you here. So I think for the community, Mark, that we'd like to get your inner feelings for the community as to some of the things that were the previous 3 years and what maybe have stood out in your mind, and maybe there's some of those that have to be continued from what you've started before. But then we got to get into, okay, when elected, this is what I'm going to concentrate on, and how I'm going to make a benefit to the community for being a selectman. So if you will, Mark, let's talk a little bit about the previous 3 years. What did you feel about those years?
Well, I'll correct you already, Charlie. It was 4.
It was 4 years?
I got elected in the first year for the 1 year term. We went to the 5-man board.
Yeah, right.
And James Thrasher got elected to the 2 year. And we formed the first 5-member board with Bert Delaney, Robert Hickey, Mike Stanton, James Thrasher, and myself. And then the next year, it was Bert Delaney and my turn to rerun for the 3-year term, and we ran unopposed that year. So it made it a little easier to concentrate on being a selectman than campaigning, and which is, it's a lot of time and effort. It's actually a lot easier just to be a selectman than it is to try and get elected, I think, for a lot of people. Myself, I would say, it's easier. But the first year was a real learning experience, and with, a lot of good people to learn from. Bert Delaney was on his 3rd year. He was my chairman that year. Taught me well, gave me a lot of good advice.
Good man, real good man.
A very respected man in the community, and as well as Bob Hickey and Mike Stanton. And then I learned a lot from James Thrasher, especially on the legal aspects of the job, and what you have to be very careful to say, because it's always on the record. And sometimes, that can be a little difficult to do. But the board worked very well with other boards to bring new taxation to the town. James Thrasher and I ran on the same format, which was to bring commercial development to the town. It was already started back prior to us with Mike Capola and Tony LaSapelle and other former selectmen who had zoned Route 1 just for that, economic development area.
Yeah.
So that was the main target. And working together, obviously, with the planning board, the zoning board, and all other volunteer boards, AdCom, to bring to fruition Patriots Place, which without the estimated, I think, is $3 million more in tax revenue for the town.
Right.
What position would this town be in today?
It'd be struggling.
We're already having budgetary discussions now on how we're going to raise and balance, the unfunded liabilities we have. But could you imagine having $3 million less, like other towns have had, and the massive cuts they've had to do? We haven't had that problem yet. We've actually had 3 years without the pressures that other towns have had. And I had also said back in 08 that in 11, 012 were going to be very difficult years. So now that's come to fruition again, and now I'm looking forward to more commercial development on Route 1. Across the street, let's get a high-tech park built over there so we can bring more taxation to the town. The citizens have taken a beating, not just in our town, but statewide and nationwide. And it's very difficult for people to make ends meet. The price of fuel also reflects in the price of food. And it's just very difficult for everybody. So I'd like to work more towards that. We also, the same boards together we worked. It wasn't a one-man show. It was a group effort. The first 5-member board I worked with was an exceptional group of guys. and with the state representative and the state senator Timilty, and we developed, obviously, the state auctioned off the state school property. We all worked together again to bring that to fruition. And that, except for a couple of blips, has been very good taxation for the town. We also applied for grants from the state, the $1.6 million for the Route 140, the intersections there and all that, North Street, all to be redone and developed so that we could have the infrastructure for new public safety building that would work in that area also. And I used to call it the new center of Foxborough.
In addition to what you're saying, just to extend a couple of thoughts, one thing is that all this extra money that's come in includes general government things that we do and all the different departments, but also a lot of that money has tended to feed the educational end of our town costs as well. And we don't lack for money. And we're redoing all of the buildings right now, and some of our school buildings are like 40, 60 years old. And a lot of that money has been part of this total thing that really it goes back to Mike Capola and myself and Bill Buckley Sr. We were the three that kind of carved it out. And it's wonderful to see that we now, instead of three, we have five. But the five, we got some different opinions mixed in with all of the others, and therefore there's more things to say, hey, wait, we might want to do it this way and that way. And you were one of the biggest part of that. But you also, there's a lot of people in this town that recognize you came out to meet some of these people. I mean, there were a couple of ahead of you or good examples that did the same thing. And one of which, by the way, is in the school department now as an assistant principal. And so it has been a good blend, having five, a lot of different opinions, but you concentrated on looking for ways to bring more money into this town. And, of course, the Patriots are a big part of it. But in addition to the fact that we have the kind of income that was in the structure that was negotiated with Kraft, you know it probably better than I, comes up with $1 million for the YMCA. And just a gift, straight like thing. So what you're saying is that first 5-member board was the key to turning us around from focusing only 3 people but getting 5 different inputs. And I agree with you. It really is. And you made that 5-member concept work as individuals, but you had some different thinking, and you all seemed to find ways to do it as a group of 5. And I caught that in what you said. And
well, it got passionate sometimes, coming from different ends of the world. But there was always mutual respect. Very good friends with all the prior selectmen I work with still to this day. And even after the meetings, even if we had a heated debate about, which one was the water tower rights.
Yeah.
And you know what, after that meeting, it was like, well, that's it. All right, let's move forward. There was no animosity at all, and it was a credit to all the people there. They just worked real well together, and there was a mutual respect. And no matter what your education background was or who you were, it was really. I wish I had that same group today, because I think we conquered a lot of things. And you bring up a good point. The public safety building came to fruition under the same group of guys. And as far as the schools go, we've done the Ahern over, and now we're just finishing up the high school. Hopefully, talking to Mike O'Leary, there's going to be some extra money there. I think it's well under budget. And you talk about a leader in town, Mike O'Leary. He takes care of our property. I see him going to work and I'm on my way to work. And he's still working when I go home. And I'm a lot younger than Mike. But very dedicated person. Those are the kind of people we have in Foxborough, very passionate about what they do, and they work hard at it. And the volunteers in this town, I mean, just here in cable access, and Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, baseball coaches, soccer coaches, basketball, football. This town couldn't survive without volunteers. And those people are a big part of this town, the way it works. And every time there's someone in need, I just went to the Joey Griffith fundraiser for a young boy that had, he's got brain cancer, and my son's the same age. And it's just frightening to think of what those people are going through.
Right.
And I've been to Dana-Farber myself in the past couple of years a few times, and I've met people from Foxborough there, and other people I've met that are driving other people from Foxborough to Dana-Farber to keep their appointments.
Wow.
You know, so you try and, as they say, keep in touch with the community, and that's what I try to do the most. And that's the best part about it. You know, be open and be approachable, so people can come to you with the problem. If you disagree with them, you say why. You don't just say, I don't want to hear it. And that's what I think the biggest ask is, to be approachable. So that's what I will always be, as approachable.
Yeah, you stand out in that regard to people. They recognize they can pick up the phone and they can call, and you'll answer it, and you'll give them the inside information if they don't already understand the total thing. I think that's a tremendous asset that you provide.
Well, we all, some people call me a politician, Charlie. I'm not a politician. Politician is Jay Barrows and James Tumty. They get paid a lot of money to do what they do. We're an elected civic volunteer. It's a $90 stipend, and it's not going to carry any weight, trust me, if anybody gets elected to this board. It costs you more money than you think to be part of it. But it's a small, it's a small cost for a burden. But, we do it because we care. I moved here from Walpole knowing that I couldn't afford property in Walpole at the time, and now what's kind of sad is I see Foxborough heading that way again. The taxation is getting a little bit high. I mean, it's $125 a week for my house. That's a lot of money. I mean, we have a lot of services for the town, and we need them. But at a $56 million budget, it's $1 million a week to run the town of Foxborough. It's kind of hard to fathom, isn't it?
It sure is.
$1 million a week. So when I first got on the board, it was $44 million. So in 6 years, it's gone up $12 million. So It's gone up $2 million a year. And I think that's where the budget started being discussed, at a $2 million deficit this year. And it's a lot of problems, and it creates hardships on people, and we need to find a way to curb it. And I just try and keep it simple. The seniors can't take anymore. I've always said that, and the young couples can't either. I mean, I've got nephews that like to live in this town. They can't. They live in Rhode Island. They can't afford the taxes. I see the population has dropped in the town of Foxborough this year. I see foreclosures have slowed down, but if you read the newspapers, there was an average of 3 a week for 2.5 years. There's a lot of abandoned property in this town. So I don't know if the banks are paying their tax on that. I haven't talked to Randy Scollins about that lately, but there was 2% of the last year I was on the board, 2% of the taxes weren't being collected. So basically, I just like to see everybody work together to try and get through this. I mean, we've had our reprieve that other towns haven't had. So it's not about anybody but the town of Foxborough. It's the Commonwealth, and that word is Commonwealth of Massachusetts. That's what it's supposed to be about. So that's what we need to focus on. So if we can just create more taxation by commercial development, and we can, and then there's going to be another $2 or $3 million a year. Plus the building permit fees, which we took from Patriots Place, was over $3 million that we put into the operational budget for 2 years. So we need to think about other things. I understand there's going to be wage freezes, but the municipality has been pretty much protected over the last 3 or 4 years compared to the private sector. And the private sector can't afford any more taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to renegotiate with the unions when it comes up. I mean, have an open book. This is what we got. This is all we got. And be, you know, you don't need to go to arbitration. Just say, hey, this is what we got. How can we work together on this? I don't want to see anybody get laid off. But if everybody has to take a 2% cut to balance the budget, that's what everybody's going to have to do.
See, what you have laid out for the town would be nice if the National Football League took the same thing. Open up the books and say, this is this, and this is that, and you can do this, and you can give a little here, and we'll give a little there.
Well, I don't think you'll ever see that happen.
The rich want to get richer.
You know, Martha Slattery brought it up last night at the Selectmen's meeting. If we don't have football next year, there's another $1 million+ dollars. Why are we focusing on what the governor has dropped down on us? He's put this on our lap. Alternative revenue streams. Right. It's just a fancy word for more taxes. Okay, when somebody says alternative revenue streams, I kind of get upset. It's not anything but taxes. You know, is the meals tax a big issue? It's not the issue of the 0.075%. It's the base, the substance of the base. It's another new tax.
Right.
And what are we going to do next year to balance the budget? We're already $500,000 behind for next year. So we need to, you know, come together and work together to get through this. And the scare tactics aren't working for me. When you tell me, you know, I have mothers coming up to me and saying, oh, if you don't pass this meals tax, we're going to lose 12 to 15 teachers. That's not at all true. You know, and go up to the town hall or talk to Chris Modis. It's not true. I mean, they've got the budget down, I think, $300,000 last night. It was a long meeting. I did watch it at home. I don't have the sheet in front of me, but they've got it pretty close. And all they got to do is tweak it a little more.
Well, you know, I think that's the right attitude, and you're known for having developed a lot of new income, and that's the focus. And you said a few minutes ago, across the street from Patriot Place, we need what they're trying to accomplish over there, and medical research and whatever. But anyhow, it's going to be buildings, and it's going to be lots of employees, and a lot of them will come from Foxborough. They've got to. They're that close to it. And it's the way to go. And years ago, we put a bigger pipe bringing water all up and down Route 1. And then we actually had a, well, you might want to call it a power lift capability, because we lost some potential development on Route 1 because you couldn't get the water up high enough for the second floors or even the third floors of some of these buildings. You need to be able to bring the water up there for fire prevention and or fire ability to counter the fire. And I think your insight is very, very good in trying to say, what can we do? Yeah, we started out and we looked at the other what we had, and then we saw different ways of looking for other things. And Route 1 certainly has got to become a avenue for a lot of additional income coming into it.
Well, that's what it's zoned for, Charlie. That's why we have to focus up there. Rodman's already moved out of his building.
Really?
He moved up the street to the other facility he has, and the only thing they have going at that building now, obviously the audio industry is taking a beating,
sure,
is service.
Yeah.
The rest of that's a new facility 15 years ago.
Yeah, Rodman really pulled it back into a...
He moved it up the street.
Yeah, right.
You drive around everywhere, you see auto dealerships out of business. I mean, it's just... But the thing is, we can't do anything at the local government it doesn't matter if Mr. Mortensen or Mr. Sloan gets elected or whoever gets elected down the street. It all goes down to the federal government. If they don't learn to curb the cost of the fuel in this country, or alternative fuels, which have to be something that we're going to have to do in the future, and the cost of health insurance. The main budget restraint that this town has had to deal with every year is the cost of health insurance. Our own, and I'll put it on a personal level, my income in the last 7 years has dropped 400%.
Wow.
Okay? If I wasn't frugal when I had made a good amount of money, then I'd be in a bad situation right now. Sure. Not that I'm in a great one. I got 4 children. It's very expensive. But we were paying $2,000 a month for health insurance through Blue Cross Blue Shield. And the co-pays were still $25 for a doctor's visit and $100 for a visit to the hospital, an emergency room visit, at $2,000 a month. Then we changed our plan. We got it down to $1,200. Well, that went up $200 the next year, and went up the next year to a tune that was going up to $1,650. Well, I couldn't afford to pay anymore. Now it's more than my mortgage again. So we had to lose our health insurance. So I'm on Commonwealth Care, and so is my family right now. Mm-hmm. And we pay the state. And there's a lot of other families I know on the same thing.
Right on.
The kids have a different health plan than the adults.
Right.
And without it, we wouldn't have health insurance, Charlie. So we would have to move. And that's just a bare fact. Now, to tell me that in the private sector, that's the private sector, that's what we're dealing with, and all the other people I know are dealing with, that on the municipality side, you're talking about $5 co-pays to $15 co-pays, please. Come on. If somebody visits a doctor once a year, they can do a $100 co-pay and lower the health insurance premium. This is what we're going to be talking about here. But once again, it's all for nothing. You look at the newspaper and you see the CEOs of Blue Cross Blue Shields and Tufts and these other plans making $7 and $10 million bonuses. Where's it going to stop? If it doesn't stop, we're all going to falter. It's just nothing's going to get better. So we can do whatever we want on the local level. It doesn't matter. The federal government, the state government, and our legislators, Timothy and Jay Barrows, and I worked with them very well in the past. I still talk to Jay all the time. They need to go to Beacon Hill and say, listen, this madness has got to stop. Because that's the $2 million that's going up every year. And then for the first time, I watched in the selectmen's meeting last night, because obviously it was about the budget, they brought up OPED. I've never even heard of it before. I was a sitting selectman for 4 years and I never heard of it. It's a fund for operating retirees' health insurance, which they discovered was 70% the town was paying, but prior to the last 40 years, we were only on the hook for 50%. So we've been giving an extra 20% to our retirees, and the state law says it's 50%. So who dropped the ball on that one? That was just blew me away. And then they're debating whether or not they should stop it right away, or wait a year, or wait or two, so these people have a lapse in time to do it. Well, I'll agree with James Davalos. They've already had their lapse in time. I apologize. I know some of these people, but it was a town's mistake. You got away with it till now. If it was retroactive, they really wouldn't be too happy. So it's all about health insurance. And this is what's crippling the nation. It's crippling every family, and it's not going to stop till something happens with the federal government and the state government. And that's what we got to, we got to do something about that. As a board of selectmen, we got to say to James, Timothy, and Jay Barrows, you need to do something right away. Right. And at $200 a year, it's been going up per person in the town. Now you know why it's $1 million a week. And then this OPED has been unfunded for all these years, so now we need to fund it. I had no idea this was unfunded. Who unfunded it? We've been using the money that was supposed to fund that to level a balanced operating budget. So this is just giving people false hope. Do you think that the people at town meeting would have voted for a new library if they had known that all these unfunded liabilities were still existing? You know, what was the big secret? Why did this happen? Why did I not know? So, and now that's the buzz around town. Prior selecting to talk to me, did you know about it? I didn't know about this. Do you know about it? No, I had no idea. So, what have we been left with here? Have we been running an efficient town for all these years? Or is there more hidden surprises? Is there more student loans out there nobody knows about? I mean, you tell me. It was very disheartening. And when my wife came into the room, she was, what's the matter? And I'm like, I wasn't openly upset. I was just like disgusted, look at my face. I go, it's almost time to move. And she's like, you serious? No, I'm kidding. But, you know, I just watched the meeting. I recorded it. And it was just very upsetting to find all this out. So you can take your meals tax and you can vote for it or you can not vote for it. It's already been voted down twice. The fact is that $300,000 or $400,000 is not going to mean squat in the long run. So we need to gain control of our deficits and be the leader that we have been in the surrounding 14 communities that we always compare ourselves to and say, okay, this is how we're going to lead. We've had other towns, neighboring towns, I'm not going to mention the names, where they've threatened to lay off 50 teachers. None of them got laid off because they all came together and said, all right, nobody's going to lose a job, but we're going to do this. That's what you need. You need real leadership. You're paying people big money to lead the schools. You're paying big money people, new Kevin Pecos, to lead the town. And he said it last night, I'm the man that gets the big bucks to make the hard decisions. Well, make them. And that's the way it's got to be. And everybody's going to be held accountable. That's just the way it's got to be.
You know, Mark, you come across, we only got a few minutes, you come across as a very broad but very deep thinker and activist. You followed a lot of different things. I don't know another person in this town that has got the kind of insight into all of the things that got to be brought to really have a good hard look at it and see if there's a trade-off here somewhere. But we are heading for some problems. We do have to. We can't afford everything, and the Commonwealth can't afford everything. Okay, because one of the problems we have is that we give money to the state. That's where they get their money. They get it from all the towns, from our taxes, but they're sending back less money now, as I understand it, this year and the next year than they have in the past. So hey, give us back more money. So they get problems. They got to find ways to reduce the waste of money that goes on at the state level, and we do need Jay as a rep, and we do need Jim Timothy as a state senator, and we got to get these people doing their things. But there's very few candidates, I would say, that has the breadth of who you are and what you've said since you've been sitting here. And please sum everything up, because I think we've got like 2 minutes left. And let us know. I mean, you come across as very strong, and you've worked hard. You're exactly what we need in a 5-member board. People like you, they can get together. Then you see some, they see something. Let's focus this, or let's move ahead. But please, how would you want the community to see you?
Well, when it came down to the vote on Patriots Place, in the executive session, minutes have been released a long time ago, it came down to me as jobs, and jobs mean taxes. Right. If people aren't working, the state is not collecting taxes, the federal government is not collecting taxes. We need to ease up on some controls that we have in the state, get some of these mills running again, wood shops, all kinds of things that will keep young people employed, and to get the taxation. That's what we need, to put people to work. And if we don't put people to work, we're not going to have revenue, and it's not an alternative revenue stream. It's simply taxes. If you want to make money for your town, you got to put people to work.
Amen.
And that's what we got to do.
Amen. Very, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Mark.
My pleasure.
It's good to see you here. Okay, I think that has given the community very good insight as to who Mark Sullivan is. And if we have others who are going to be candidates and they're going to come before you, I hope they tend to at least be looking at part of what, even just part of what Mike has said. You got to take a hard look at how to get more and more of the younger people employed. You got to take a hard look at the small businesses and support them and make sure that there's growth for them. And then whatever the big ones are, they're going to go after the people anyhow and try to get as many of the workers as they can. But I think he's painted it very, very straightforwardly. He hasn't put ice cream all over it. He says, this is what we're into, and this is the kind of things we got to do. So thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much for the opportunity to know a little bit more about Mark Sullivan. Thank you.